It is now 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started so that I can honor your time, and hopefully we can get out just a tad bit early so that folks can take care of the rest of their day and their weekend. How you doing over there?
I know, I might have to leave. It's okay,
I got to tell you though, there's some prime seating right up here, VIP seating. Okay. Well, because it's kind of hard to eat. Okay. So, so how many folks have heard a presentation that I've done before, even today? Okay. All right. So, all right. Cool. So just a little bit about me. My name is Koen. I'm a diversity trainer and consultant, and I work primarily with government organizations and nonprofits. I do some kind of corporate stuff from time to time, but we don't speak the same language, corporate America and I, so sometimes we don't necessarily gel the way we could. I'm trying to think of other things that are important. I taught high school and middle school for 8 years. 4 of that 8 years was primarily middle school, but I also taught some high school classes. I'm an adjunct faculty member at Bethel University and a faculty member at the Adler Graduate School in Richfield, Minnesota. I have a master's in educational technology, so using computers to teach people how to do stuff, and my undergrad is in organizational leadership. And the most important thing you need to realize is that I used to be a teenager. And apparently I'm no longer one now. Right? And when I work with teens, I used to, and I catch myself now saying we. And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? That's us, not we. Right? And it's very obvious, and I said this last time, it's very obvious that I have a presentation that I'd like to deliver, but just as important as what I'd like to deliver is a conversation that I'd like to have with you about what you expected to get out of this particular session. And so what are some hopes that you have as you walk out of this room saying, I'm glad that I attended this session because I got what I wanted. And so what is that? What are you looking for out of this particular session? Yes.
I would love to hear some of your ideas about how to work with teams that will set goals. It's really hard for some of them, at least with the ones that I'm working with, to find goals that they can follow.
Okay.
They don't know what they want.
They don't know what they want, right? So teams don't know what they want, and you want some tips on how to help them get that.
Yeah, how can I help them to find their own goals and not my goals?
Right. So how do you help them find their own goals and not your goals? All right? Cool. Hopefully we will talk about that. That's part of my plan.
Yeah.
All right?
I'm kind of open book. I'm excited to hear what you have to say since I work with teenagers. It's helpful to hear more input about how I can be supportive for them.
Okay. Cool. Yes.
I work with some kids that have very limited options in front of them. Like, for example, they're interested in their American. They're involved in the juvenile correction system, and so goal setting is really difficult in that situation. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yep. Certainly. We will talk about goal setting in limited situations, right? Because I also believe that limited situations also give us better abilities to focus on some goal accomplishment stuff. Other folks, other things you are hoping we would talk about.
I think ways to help you see the possibilities and beyond the barriers that they've seen in their family life.
Okay. So to help youth see beyond the barriers that they see in their families' lives or that they may be experiencing themselves. Okay.
Another one over here, Andre.
Yes.
I work with teenagers who are deaf in a mentoring program, and they're all ninth graders. And she's African American, and also with her, I have a real struggle with what are your goals, what can happen in your life, and like, what are these goals for a young black girl in the cities? Where can she work? What are her options? I feel like I don't know.
Well, we'll try to identify that. Cool. I did see a hand back here. Was that a hand?
Thumbs up, I agree.
Okay, thumbs up. You agree. All right, great.
And also kind of our practical goals about, like, you know, a lot of times I'll work with young people, like, I'm going to, you know, be a professional basketball player, football player, and that's great, but a very small percentage of people will make that. So how can we, without dashing their dreams, work on maybe some more practical options if that doesn't fall through?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think rapper is another one, right? So kids will say, I want to be a rapper. All right. Well, without dashing their dreams, and we can make this very realistic, how many poems have you written? How many poems have you read? If you want to be a rapper, how many have you read? If you want to be a professional athlete, how many push-ups did you do today? How many are you planning to do tomorrow? Do you have 6 or 7 hours just to shoot free throws? So when we start putting things in perspective for them, without dashing their hopes, because if they're willing to do the work, they certainly can achieve those goals. But unfortunately, we live in America where we're entitled to everything. I'm entitled to be rich, which is why I go on The Bachelor or Bachelorette, whichever, same show, right? So that is a tool you can use to help them decide their goals. So before we get into more conversation, I want to show a video, and I want to get your response to this video in terms of what might be, and we're going to pay particular attention to the young man. He is the protagonist in this video clip. And I want you to explore. Now, we are guesstimating. We do not know for sure. But I want you to think about what might this young person's attitude be, and what kind of goal setting might he be engaging in based on his attitude. All right? So we're making lots of assumptions and presumptions, and that's good for this hypothetical situation that we're about to see. All right? So if my computer is working with me, this should come right up. Working with computers is like working with small animals or children. You have to be patient, and you never know if they're going to do what they're supposed to do, right? So we're pulling it up. So while we're waiting on that to kind of pull up or whatnot, how might you define an attitude, or how has an attitude been defined for you? What is an attitude?
Approach something.
It's the way you approach something, okay? Attitude.
Body language.
It's body language.
Emotions.
It's emotions, all right? What is an attitude? A response. When adults talk about attitudes, what are adults typically talking about? I mean, my parents would say, boy, you have an attitude. You better do something about that. Right? So what are adults talking about when they talk about it? Okay, so the tone of voice. All right, what else?
The word choice.
The word choice.
Body
Body
language.
language. Facial expressions. Gestures. Negativity. All right? And I want to say thank you for all of those. And in terms of attitudes, as I was growing up, my parents would describe themselves as being old school. That's how they would describe themselves. It looks like my video's coming up. So I'm going to stop there and work with my video. So I'll come back to that story in just a second. Thoughts, comments, observations? Yes, ma'am.
Stereotypes, judging, assuming.
Okay.
There are a lot of things going on in that.
So there are a lot of things going on in that video. Stereotype, assuming, prejudging. All right. Other folks, other thoughts about
A good kid.
a good kid. What do you mean? Who's wearing a hoodie?
Gifted, talented grandma or caretaker.
Who's a caretaker?
Talented.
Gifted, talented.
Yeah, I feel a good kid.
Okay. Now I want to say this: that what we just witnessed was a piece of art. It was a fictional piece. How close to reality do you think that particular piece of art was?
For me, it's that not everything looks like, it is for real. I don't know how to say it, but like, it can be deceiving what you're looking at, and then like, you'll get the wrong idea just because like, you're an old white lady or you're a young Afro-American young guy.
Okay.
And that stereotyping and labeling can be really deceiving, and all the prejudice behind that.
Okay. What else? Yes, ma'am.
I think it's very much true. I just experienced it like 3 weeks ago. It's just being like asked, called out and asked if I wanted, just because my hands were in my pocket. And I like my hands warm, but sure, it seemed like I was trying to steal something. So it's really uncomfortable. It's actually like in the Golden Rule building. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Other folks. Is this close to reality, or is this not very close to reality at all?
I think there's definitely truth in it.
Okay.
In maybe not as characterized as that was, but it was also focused.
Okay.
But,
Cool. So high stress or low stress? High stress. For folks who, that this may be a reality for them, what is the long-term effects of high-stress situations like that? Because this was 30 seconds in one instance, and I would imagine that at least that might happen 2 more times in a day. Yes?
I used to joke with some of my friends, they would say, like, oh, they love scary movies, right? And I would say, well, I don't like scary movies because I could just walk into Target, and that's a scary experience for me. Because I don't want to be assumed that I'm going to be taking something, or being destructive, or I don't know, whatever the assumption is that I might be doing, scandalizing or but I know I've felt that as a young person, I think especially.
Yeah.
It's stressful.
It's
Now when I go into Target and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a stressful experience.
Now, this is something interesting about young people, and I think you all know this because you probably went through the same phase that I did, right? Young people have an interesting way of creating logic for themselves because it's actually not logical, but it makes sense to them. And young people will typically say, well, if you think I'm doing it, then I may as well do it. Right? Anyone, personally, have you had that rationalization for yourself? Right? Whatever it is. It could be any number of things. So if you think I'm doing it, I may as well do it. If I'm going to get in trouble for it anyway, I may as well have done it. I was just being honest. Right? Yeah. I was the crier because my parents did spank. So I was the crier because I know that's what they wanted. So they get whatever tool they were going to use, and I'd be like, no, I'm so sorry, oh. But I had a brother who, he was tough. And tough is not good when your parents are spanking. Because he's like, I can take it. I was like, dude, I'm falling out. I'm telling you right now. So I want you to think about it in terms of his attitude. Now, is he more likely to engage the world in a positive way, or is he just as likely to approach the world in a very hesitant way in terms of his interactions with the world, given that particular situation? What do you think? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess it depends, because if they're looking to the camera and they're focusing on the Asian homeowner, is that the lens that they use? Because that's different too, like, because that's his perspective, that maybe that Asian man is the suicide, he doesn't see that for himself, and maybe in reality, it's not like he's never found space and a lot of people do.
Yep. So is it his perception of what other people are perceiving him as? And the key to that is perception is reality. So if I think that other people are thinking this about me, then that's the truth, right? So sometimes when we see particularly African American young men and now African men, Somali men, and Liberian men who are being acculturated in this great place called America because other folks see them all as the same. Right? I don't know if... so I know that in Brooklyn Center High School, there's some friction between Africans and African Americans, between Liberians and Somalis and African Americans. And other folks are like, well, why don't you guys just all get along? You're all the same, right? And it's like, no. All right? But that's another workshop. I do that on the side. Anyway, so one of the things that typically happens is that we have young men who are walking in a world that they think is already judging them, whether the world is judging them or not, whether it's true or not. They think that the world is judging them. And then every so often they get proven right. And so if they can't control anything outside of themselves, what do they say? What do they figure out that they can control? If I can't control anything outside of me, what do I have control over? Over me. So I will be intimidating. I will be boisterous. I will be loud because you don't hear me any other time when I'm trying to be civilized, but you're going to hear me when I'm walking down the street, Jay-Z and Bunch and rapping and being all loud because you don't see me any other time. It's funny, and teens in particular get really strange at crosswalks. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, right? So be it a cross light or at a stop sign, you're sitting there in the car, and these people are walking so slow, right? And I live over north, and so one of the things that I also think is funny is I pay for the sidewalks. I pay taxes for the sidewalks, and they insist on walking in the middle of the street and get mad at me because I got bumpers on my car. Right? But one of the things that they're saying is, I don't have any power or control in anything else, but I'm going to control this. And you can't make me walk on the sidewalk. You can't make me stop singing loud or talking loud. And guess what my objective is? It's not to make them quiet. It is to make them be seen, but in a more productive way. All right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the truths around human beings. This is a picture of me, and that's my brother William, and that's my sister Crystal. And I don't know if you noticed, but my bow tie seems to be almost as big as my head. And so I asked my mom about that. I said, Mom, why is my bow tie so big? And her first response was, well, son, that was the fashion. Right? But later I found out that we were in such a state of poverty that we could not afford Easter clothes. But I'm not sure how we could afford the Olin Mills studio session. But at any rate, so my mother made our Easter clothes. Anybody else have Olin Mills? Easter? Okay, cool. All right. So that's our picture. So here's some truths about human beings. Human beings can learn, change, and grow. Who I am today is not who I was at 17. If you look at the front part of your handout, that's a picture of me and my friend Samisha and Sharon. And I know that looks scary that we're holding guns and that kind of stuff, but context is everything. So we were at a concert of a group that some of you may know by the name of Public Enemy. So we were at a Public Enemy concert, fighting the power. That's one of the lyrics. Okay. And so who I was at 17 is not who I am today. And I'm glad that I have smoothed out. All right? And people do what they think works even when what? Even when it doesn't work. And why do people do things that actually don't get them success, but they do it anyway? Why is that? Reaction? What about reaction? Okay, so they get some kind of reaction. Yes. It could be the only power that they have. Attention. Has anyone seen a baby or a toddler fall out in one of those major department stores or in the grocery store? Right? I don't know about you, but when I see that happen, I make the assumption that this isn't their first time doing it. Right? And why do you think that babies, because they're not, I never see the parent give them what they want. I want Fruit Loops, ah! Right? The parent, I've never seen a parent say, okay, Johnny, here's some Fruit Loops. Right? Most parents are like, boy, if you don't get up off that ground, they're trying to redirect the behavior in some kind of way. But the kid has done that before. Why? Because they got what they wanted. Whatever that might be. At some point, that falling out thing got them some success. And so as human beings, we build on success. And so what we say is, if that behavior worked in the past, get all things considered, that behavior should work in the present, which also means that I will use that behavior when? In the future. So when will that baby, for example, change his or her behavior? When will their behavior change? But it's not working right now. So they're not getting Fruit Loops, but they keep doing it. Yes?
They'll change when they somehow figure out a different behavior that will get them what they want.
Before they have to figure that out, they have to recognize that this behavior doesn't work. Because we know that the behavior doesn't work. The parents know that the behavior doesn't work. But who's failing to realize that? The child. And so the behavior will change when the child decides or figures out that behavior is not working. They could be 35 before that happens, but at least it happens. Right? So, people do what they think works even when it doesn't. And all human behavior is goal-directed. Everybody does something that they believe will help them accomplish their goal. Maybe I'm a pessimist, or in my old age I'm getting, grouchy or whatever, but I don't believe in true altruism. I think people do things because they get some kind of benefit out of it, even if it's just an emotional benefit, but people do stuff to get something out of it. And lastly, that attitude is a reaction to a goal. You guys gave me great definitions for an attitude, but those definitions were inadequate for my parents. I told you earlier, my parents were old school, and they were raised by old school people. And so my parents would say crazy stuff to try to get us to act right. Because my parents went to college, and they said, we have these fancy degrees, and so we're going to raise you better than our parents raised us. So they tried to use psychology, they used sociology to help us change our behaviors. And when that didn't work, they went back to what they knew, which was yelling and screaming. And so my father would say just crazy stuff. He'd say, boy, I don't like your attitude. You better fix your face. And so I'd go, Right? And I get sent to my room. Or my mother would say, say crazy stuff because she just cut to the chase. And she'd say, boy, you better go to your room till you learn how to act. So I'd go in my room for a while. I'd get my act together. I opened up the hallway door and I would say, to be or not to be. I spent a lot of time in my room. But even as a late bloomer, I finally got it in terms of what they were talking about in terms of an attitude. You see, my dad was my pastor, so growing up, I was a preacher's kid. And on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We stop at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So all day Sunday is church. Friday night, I'd ask my dad for the car. Because my dad loves me, what does he say? He says, yes, he loves me. So I get the keys, I'm hanging out with my friends, I fill the car up with gas, I come home before curfew, and my dad says I have what kind of an attitude? I have a good attitude. What do I say about my dad's attitude? He also has a good attitude. So Friday night, we're cool. Sunday, my best friend Dexter calls me at noon and says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? Church. All day. But I'm 17. I'm invincible. And Jesus is my friend. So I go to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? What does my dad say? Not only does he say no, but he gives me a sermon about how I'm leading people to hell. The worst consequence in my household was that you could go to hell. And you could either go to hell on your own or my dad would show you the way. As a result of that conversation, what would I say about my dad's attitude? That he has a bad attitude. What would he then say about my attitude? That mine is even worse than his, right? So Friday night we're cool. Sunday we have a problem. What determines an attitude? The context?
What you're looking for, the goal, where you want to get, and why.
When you get what you want, you have a good attitude. When you're denied access to what you want, you have a bad attitude. So when we have young people who are in front of us with a bad attitude, what do we know about them for sure? They're not getting what they want. They're not getting what they want. So there are two ways to help people have a good attitude. What's the easiest? Give them what they want. Now, the interesting thing about our young people, the young people that we work with, is that sometimes we can't give them what they want the way they want it. I mean, that's the wisdom of being an adult and having access to power and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm a classroom teacher, and I would always have this archetype in my class. And there's usually someone who sits in the back who is the proverbial class clown trying to take attention from me. So they want attention. And in my early days of teaching, I would power struggle with those individuals. Because I'd say, you're not taking all the attention away from me. I have to get through this lesson. And they would say, well, I dare you to teach me. And then we get into this whole power struggle thing, the front of the class versus the back of the class. And now his influence is growing in the back of the class. So I'm trying to get my Crimea group together and annex part of the classroom as on my side. And so we're having all of this confusion in the classroom until I got wise. What I realized is, as the teacher, I don't need to power struggle with the kid. Because I have all the power. Master of the universe. Teachers always win. They know how to play the rules. But what is winning if I'm losing all of these battles? If my students don't want to come to my class, they don't want to learn, what is winning doing for our long-term relationship? And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to give that kid what he wants. So he wants attention. I'm going to give him attention. And so I said, Jeffrey, I'm going to need for you to pass out these papers. Can you pass these papers out for me, Jeff? Yeah. Oh, cool, man. All right, good. No, Mr. Koen. You got to have boundaries, right? And so I invite Jeff to start passing out papers. And then I say, well, Jeff, I need you to write the notes up on the board. So you hear my notes. If you can write those up on the board. And if you can take attendance tomorrow, that would be great too. And so all of a sudden, I'm taking Jeff out of the back of the class, bringing him to the front of the class. And then I said, you know, Jeff, you know, you're doing all this stuff for me, man. Why don't we just make you a special desk right next to mine? So all of a sudden, I've taken this deficit in my class and made it an asset for me. And so not only is Jeff writing the board and taking leadership, he's getting the attention that he was looking for, just not the way he was asking for it. And so when we talk about, we have kids who are in confined areas and they have limited choices, I think that's the best thing for them, to have limited choices, because they can be more clear about the choices that are available to them. One of the things as adults that we typically do that's wrong, and it's just wrong, is that we give kids too many choices. Or we give them choices that don't make sense. I'll never forget, my sister is... my niece is now 18, but when she was 4, I was over, and my sister was in a power struggle with my niece. And she was like, "You're going to eat these peas." And the baby's like, She's like, "Yes, you're going to eat these peas." And the baby's like, "No, no, no." And so I came over, and I'm talking, I'm watching this stuff, and I was like, "Chris, just chill out, right? So what's the big deal about these peas?" And she was like, "Well, she's got to eat her, learn to eat her vegetables and blah, 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 blah." I said, "Okay, that's cool." So I let that chill out for a while, and I brought the baby back to the table, and I said, "Look, you can have 7 peas, or you can have 5 peas." Guess what the baby did? She ate 5 peas. 5 more than she would have fighting with her mom, right? And so we have to start giving our kids realistic, small choices that help them build their encouragement and their esteem, so they can start having faith in their ability to make big choices, right? And so we give folks choices. We give students choices. This can be done on Thursday or Friday. I need this assignment on Thursday or Friday. You decide. It's going to get done, but you get to decide when, right? And so we typically don't give young people lots of choices. And so an attitude is a reaction to a goal. And so when we see a bad attitude, we know that a kid or a person that we're working with is not getting what they want. The second part of that is that what if what they want is not attainable? They don't have the skills or the abilities to get it. I don't have the right to give it to them. And if I could, they couldn't manage it anyway. Then what becomes our job as a helper in helping them? To have a good attitude. How do we help them have a good attitude when they can't get what they want? Help them to see what the possibilities are, and more importantly, what? Because I can see the possibilities. I can see clearly now. Right? So not only help them find a new goal, but help them actualize what that goal is. Right? And too often our policies and procedures want to tell kids what to do. And what happens when we tell kids or we give them advice about what to do as opposed to them developing it themselves? They shut us out. And their success and their failure, because we gave them the idea, is external as opposed to it being internal. So we're not helping them to develop on the inside. We're helping them to become more compliant. The last thing we need in this world is more people who are compliant. We need thinkers. We need movers. We need shakers. All right? So let's go to your handout. So in terms of good attitudes versus bad attitudes. So growing up in my household, there were certain things that I knew were against our policies. It's not how we did things. And one of the things that my parents would say is, you don't talk back. So that was a rule. So they gave you a direction, they gave you some advice, and you did not talk back. And so one day I'm feeling myself, right? And so my dad says, Andre, or I'm full of my own britches. I'm full of my, big in my, how does that go? Something about britches. I'm getting too big for my britches, right? So my dad says, Andre, take out the trash. Now, I know the family rule, which is what? Don't talk back. So I say to this man, why do I have to take out the trash? What happens? Silence. And then he repeats it. Boy, I said take out the trash. We got all these other kids. I took it out last week. And now my dad is engaging me and we're starting to talk about what? Are we talking about the trash? No, we're talking about me. Talking about, boy, you don't talk back to me. What is wrong with you? And now we're fighting all this stuff. And ultimately my dad says, boy, go to your room. And I'm like, damn. Why? Why am I excited about going to my room? Because I didn't take out the trash. So I won the game. So I thought. And so then my dad got hip to it and he would say, boy, take out the trash. And I try to hook him. Right? Dad, those other kids can take out the trash. Boy, take out the trash. Now I will tell you that I thought my name was Boy for the first 10 years of my life. Right? Take out the trash. Take out the trash. And the more he repeated what he wanted me to do, the less I had wiggle room to try to get him to engage with me. So the only thing left for me to do was to start taking out the trash. And so that's what I did. I took out the trash. All too often what we do is we get caught up in people's attitudes. And the attitude is just a smoke screen to divert us from actually paying attention to the goal. So I don't know if you've ever worked with a young person and they give you all this attitude and their neck is wiggling and don't nobody talk to me like that. I can't believe she did that. I remember working at the high school. And the high school was set up in such a way that there was a common area in the center, it was a circle, and then all the classrooms kind of shot off this circle octagon, right? And so there would always be these students who would have a beef with another student, but they would yell across the breezeway to the other student. And they'd be like, girl, I'm going to get you after class. And the other girl would be like, come on! And they're doing all this stuff across the hall. And then the class would let out. And so all the kids start going into the breezeway. And those kids who had a problem with each other would still be voicing all of this stuff until the adults came. And when the adults came, that's when it was on and popping. Right? So now that the adults are there, the girls are really acting a fool. They're like, I'm going to get you! And the whole time they've been talking about, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to smack you, and I'm going to hurt you. What they're really saying is, help! And so when the adults get there, the adults are not going to let anything happen. And so we're standing there. And so now they feel like they can really just go for it and do all their dramatics and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because they know that help is there. Do they really want to fight? They don't really want to fight. I saw this on the Discovery Channel with silverback gorillas. So a silverback gorilla is walking through his land, looking at his territory, and he sees another silverback that doesn't belong to his group. And so the first thing he does is he goes, ugh. So he starts throwing up grass. And one of the things I have to mention is that there are no hospitals in the forest. Right? So the gorilla's throwing up grass, and then he starts showing his teeth. And the other gorilla's like, okay. And then he sees that the other gorilla is not moving. So then he's showing his teeth. And he's throwing up grass. And then he starts beating his chest. Why is the gorilla going through all those gyrations? He wants to show him who's boss. Right? Why else is he going through all those gyrations? To get some attention. What might happen if two 500-pound gorillas start fighting? And there are no hospitals in the forest. And when you are an animal and you get injured, what becomes your fate? Death. Right? And so they're acting out like that because what they're saying to the other gorilla is, look, man, I really don't want to fight. Please take this as a cue to go away. The people that we work with do the same thing. You start getting too close to a key issue. They start acting up and saying, you know what, I really don't want to go there, so I'm going to flip that paper on the table, off the table. So now we can talk about me flipping that as opposed to going back to what we were originally talking about. You're getting too close to my core issue. I don't want to deal with this right now, so let me act up. I'm about to get discharged. And I'm not ready to go back to my home family. So let me act up in such a way that you say that you have to keep me here longer. And so when we start talking about particularly young people, and we talk about how to help them get what they want, we have to help them understand that we will only listen to movement. We will not listen to words. We will only listen to movement. And what that means is, another way to say that is, I hear what you say, but I see what you do. And so we have to live these things out as examples. I'll never forget, a woman asked me, and I said this in my last session, a woman asked me, well, how do you teach kindergartners about diversity? Guess what I told her? You don't. Don't talk to kindergartners about that. You teach them the golden rule. He who makes the gold makes the rules. No, that's my dad's golden rule, right? So do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's their diversity lesson. But they're not going to listen to what you say if they don't see it in your life. So if they don't see diverse folks at the dinner table, they're not going to buy what you're saying with your lip service. If you don't go to cultural events where other people that don't necessarily look like you or your family are, you don't have relationships with folks, they're not going to buy what it is that you say because we only listen to movement. And when my parents figured that out, that cut out a lot of foolishness around the house, and I had to come up with some other games to play. But that's another workshop too. All right? So let's take a look at the picture in the middle of your handout with the young lady walking through that picture. This is the famous picture. It's called The American Girl in Italy. And what is happening in that picture? What do you notice in that picture? She's got some hounds around her. What does that mean?
The men are flirty.
Okay, so the men are very flirty.
Or sexually harassing her.
Or sexually harassing her.
I can't tell if it looks like it.
Okay.
She looks distressed.
She looks distressed. Is she going to be able to be or give her 100% best to her destination? No, she may not be able to give that. Again, we're surmising. She could be, very confident and whatnot. But I would say that the micro inequities that she is experiencing could have some damaging effects on her ability to give her 100% best. All right? And so when we talk about young people, we have to understand that racism and ableism and poverty and heterosexism can sometimes be a barrier to goal achievement, to having a good attitude. Right? And so ultimately, what is it that our young people want? What is their goal? And how do I help them to accomplish their goal? Bring it down? I don't know how.
It's not your nature.
Yeah.
You're just going through the wall, letting so they're getting drowned out.
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I will do my best.
I know, you went through a powerful speech once.
Yeah, but I can only be me, so I will do my best. So what are humans' goals? Human goals are very simple. If you look at the bottom of your handout, we're all looking for significance, we're looking for belonging, and we're looking for safety. We're looking for significance, belonging, and safety. What significance says is that I am a person with purpose and power, that I have a reason for living, either one that I find out about or one that I decide to have. So my purpose for living is to do this thing. And one of the things that, in terms of looking at the significance and helping young people achieve their goals or set goals, is that sometimes we ask the wrong questions. For example, as an adult, I can't even answer this question that I'm often asked: what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm over 40 years old and I don't have a good answer for that. But I do know what kind of person I want to be. I know what kind of relationships that I want to have. And so my significance, my importance is developed in how I relate to the world and what I can produce. Secondly, they're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking for networks of people who understand their significance. Right? Why do kids join gangs? Because they want to belong to a group that recognizes their significance. Right? And so significance, belonging, and the last is safety. And we're looking for networks that are physically, emotionally, spiritually safe for us to develop our relationships as well as to recognize our significance. So we're all looking for safety, significance, and belonging. And I would say more often than not, when we have folks that are in front of us, young people that are in front of us, and they don't know what goals that they want, this is a great place to start. So what do you do well? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What do you want people to say about you? What kind of relationships do you want to have? Right? And then how do you create boundaries so that you can have safe relationships and your dream can be protected? If I'm having unprotected sex, I'm not protecting my dream unless my dream is to be a teen parent. And not very often is that the case, that is the primary reason why people become a teen parent. It becomes a way that this gets fulfilled. Because if nobody else loves me, that baby will love me. Or if I don't, I can't accumulate property, but I can accumulate people that will definitely be at my funeral. Right? And so when we talk about the goal setting of young people, we have to look at it in terms of these things, because then we can be much more strategic in helping them to tease out real and authentic goals for themselves. One of the things that I also want to mention in the short time that we have 20 minutes, is this idea of respect. One of the things that we typically demand of young people is that they give us respect. And adults are notorious for this. And this is the thing that I hear adults say all the time. You have to earn my respect. Has anyone ever heard someone say that? Right? So here are 5 ways that we don't give respect, because there's only one way that you can get it. The first is we don't give respect to people who say, do as I say, not as I do. We don't give respect to those people. And why don't we give them respect? Because they're not good role models. Why else? Yep. Adults tend to look at teenager as kids, goats, as opposed to smaller people. Fortunately and unfortunately, the 7-year-old kid that I was, I'm still the same today. Except I don't have little sausage fingers anymore. They're more like wrinkly roll-ups. Right? But for the most part, I'm the same person. I've just developed. I've matured. Secondly, we'll come back to number 2. Boys will be boys. We have this mantra that this is just how things are. We don't give people that who just say that or have that mindset respect. Why? Why do we not give those people who just say, this is how things are? It's always been this way.
They're not open for change.
So they're not open for change. And oftentimes the context of situations, of our environment, of our civil society will change. And those folks aren't willing to make that change or can't make that change. So it's hard for us to give them respect. Next is when people say, that's not my child. That's hard for us to give people respect. Or when people will say, well, that's not my responsibility. Somebody else will pay, will do that or pay for that or handle that. How many of you have gotten into an elevator and waited for somebody else to push your floor? It's common courtesy? Okay, cool. What if nobody ever came to push your floor? How long would it take for you to get to your destination? If you don't do it, right? You know, I pick up trash in my neighborhood. I live in North Minneapolis, 24th and James, or 23rd and James. And I pick up trash. I didn't put the trash there, but why do I pick it up? What's that?
It's your neighborhood.
Because it's my neighborhood, and I want other people to see me picking up their trash. Right? Because that's how you get respect. And lastly, and this changed how I did a lot of things in my life, when I saw disrespect as an act of violence. So when violence happens, what's the emotional residue of that violence? How do people feel after violence has happened?
Some might feel guilty.
Okay, so someone might feel guilty. What else? Sad. Brave. Afraid. What's that? Protected. Oh, protective. Okay, sorry. Hurt, anger, resentment. One also might say that when disrespect is enacted on a person, those same emotions come up for them as well. And so disrespect is seen as an act of violence. And I have to tell you, when I came to that realization, I was less likely to be as sarcastic as I was, because I had recognized that sarcasm is an act of violence. It's an act of violence. Cursing in the workplace is an act of violence. It is not designed to lift people up. It is designed to tear people down. And so number 2, earn my respect. The only way that you can get respect is to give it. And you have to give it in the face of disrespect. there's a restaurant that I went to, and it was a Saturday morning. It was about 10:30 in the morning. I was just going to grab some lunch and get going and whatnot. And so I walk into this bar restaurant, and the ordering station for takeout was at the bar. So I go up to the bar to look at the menu and whatnot, and there's a guy at the end of the bar who's red-faced and drunk. And I don't know about you, but drunk people are unpredictable, right? So I'm not afraid of fighting because I can get down. But they're just unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do. And so I close my menu and hand it to the server, and the guy moves from the end of the bar and sits right next to me. And I'm like, oh, here we go, right? And so we start off with small talk and just kind of, the weather and all that kind of stuff. And then he breaks into the thesis of why he sat next to me. And he leans over to me and he says, you know what? I don't like niggers. And I'm like, that's a heck of an introduction. I mean, how do you follow that up, right? And so I do what any good Minnesotan would do. I change the subject. So I ignore it and I just kind of go on to something else. And then something in my spirit says, no, don't ignore that. Talk about it. So I asked him, I said, sir, well, when you use that word, what are you talking about? He said, well, I'm talking about, ignorant, uneducated, living off the system, ghetto, illiterate, blah, 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 blah. So he had all this negative stuff to say. And I said, sir, do you know any white people who fit that description? He said, yeah. I said, how about those Vikings? We started talking about the Vikings and whatnot. And so then he leans over to me. He said, you know what? I don't like niggers, but I like you. Now that felt like it felt like a compliment, but it didn't feel like a compliment, right? So I'm really puzzled by this. So I said, sir, what is it about me that you like? And he said, you have a good head on your shoulders. You can communicate well. You're educated, and I like that. I said, well, sir, what if all the people that you've met that you think look like me were idiots? All of them. All the ones you met that you think look like me were idiots. And everybody else that you don't know is just like me. He looks at me and he says, I gotta pee. So he gets up and he goes to the bathroom. And so I'm feeling pretty good at this point because we haven't broken out into fisticuffs. My food is here. I'm ready to go. So I grab my stuff. I start heading towards the door. And guess who I meet at the door? This dude. He was coming out the restroom. He had brushed his hair over to the side. There were water driplets on his face. And he has a damp paper towel. And he reaches out to me with this damp paper towel. And he says, I raise chickens. If you ever need fresh eggs, give me a call. So I take the napkin. I go my way. He goes his way. I never called him about chicken. What happened for that man? He changed something about him. Now, would you have understood if I had given that dude a piece of my mind for calling me outside of my name and such a nasty, dirty name? Would you have understood if I had given him a piece of my mind? Yeah. If I had done that, what would that have done for him? It would have confirmed everything that he thought about people who he thinks look just like me. And so to earn respect, we have to give it in the face of disrespect. And that's one of the things we have to teach our young people, is that you can't earn somebody's respect unless you're willing to give it out. And you have to give it to people who are being disrespectful to you, because you change the atmosphere when that happens. I'm sure you've seen it at work, where a client or another coworker is nasty to somebody else, and then that person is like, I'm not stooping to that level. I'm still going to be nice to you. And what do the people in the office say about that? They go, wow, how did you do that? I can't believe you did that. So you become the encouragement for other folks. We also have this misnomer that we have to work out of our kids, which is people will say goofy stuff like, don't be a doormat. Have you ever heard someone say that? Don't be a doormat. Don't let people walk all over you. Anyone heard someone say stuff like that? Yeah. Please raise your hand if you have a doormat at your house now. What is the purpose of a doormat?
So you don't give them up.
You wipe your feet off, so once you pass the doormat, you're clean. Well, sometimes the people that we're working with, they got a lot of junk on them. And they got to get that stuff off of them so that they can go past us and be clean. But what do you do with your doormat once it gets full of junk? What do? You shake it out. You get all the junk off of it and you put it right back so you can start it all over again. And so, because I'm supposed to be more quiet. And so, all too often, we get that confused. And we also get confused the difference between being a bridge and being a doormat. Did I let that man walk all over me? Or was I actually a bridge to help him get someplace? I like to think that I was a bridge to help him get someplace. And so when we work with our young people, we're trying to help them find their significance, their belonging, and their safety. Sometimes they kick up crazy stuff for us. They're trying to get us to catch a hold of their attitude, that we pay close attention to their attitude so we don't have to help them focus on this stuff. Because if they can keep us away from this, then they can continue to live and act and be the way they have been, the way that they know, even if it's not getting them the kind of results that they want. So we can't get caught up in their attitudes. We have to stay focused on helping them to achieve and get what is true and good about them. And the best way to do that is to, if you go to the back page of your handout, is to help them recognize that there is dignity and honor in being human. One of the things that racism and other forms of oppression try to do is convince young people that they are not human. That you are, and it's so funny when the trick works because they start calling themselves things that aren't human. Like they'll call themselves a thug. I'm a gangster, right? And the funniest thing is when you hear, suburban white kids using the N-word. And the thing is even more, I don't know if it's more funny is not a word, but the thing that I think is even more interesting is when white people get upset that they can't use the N-word, as if it is a badge of courage. Well, you can say the N-word and I can't. What is that? That's not a badge of honor to be able to say that stuff. And I personally believe, and this is just my soapbox, that any use of the word is negative. Because I believe and I know that people communicate not with words, but with thoughts. That we communicate with thoughts. But the words that we use translate our thoughts from one person to another. And so I tell my young people, if you can say the N-word and you see butterflies and bunnies and sunshine, when you say the word, keep using it. But if it brings up other images, that might not be a word that you want to use. And so we have to teach them that there's dignity and honor in being human. What is dignity? Is it something that you have or something that you give? It's a trick question. It's both, right? So dignity is something that you have, and it is also something that you give. I do not give the people who are on the freeways money. I do not give them money, but I do give them dignity. I look them in the eye. I try to keep a stash of gift cards from Subway or some other place, and I, when it's appropriate, I'll give them a gift card to go get something to eat or whatnot. But the thing I want them to know is that you are still human, even though you may be in a down-and-out position or you may be a scammer. But you're still human. So we give that dignity to other people. Lastly, honor. What is honor? It's the highest form of respect. And we typically give honor to people who have done things for us that we could not do for ourselves. But I will tell you, with our young people, if we don't lift them up and tell them how great they are, there are certainly tons of opportunities for TV, movies, media, the internet to tell them how horrible, nasty, and despicable they are. And so it is up to us to lift them up until they see what we see. Being. Please raise your hand if you passed a test or you purchased a ticket that made you eligible to be born. None of us have done anything to bring ourselves here. We only accepted an invitation. I don't want to think about how that invitation came. It's disgusting. But we all accepted an invitation, and now we're figuring out what it means to be human. And I will submit this to you, that there are only three ways that our humanity can be seen. One is when we are in direct relationship, an authentic relationship with another human being. If I'm on a deserted island like Tom Hanks in that movie Castaway, it is hard for me to express my humanity without being in that relationship, which is why he created Wilson, the other person that was on the island with him, right? So he could maintain his humanity. Secondly, that our humanity can only be enacted when we are in the service of other people and not primarily in our own service. So our humanity is magnified when we're in the service of other people. And so when we get our teens, sometimes they get so wrapped up in themselves that they don't see how their behaviors, their actions, or their power could be used to help other people. And I have to tell you, American idolatry doesn't help. You know that show where people are trying to, right? Because they do that for their own glory as opposed to trying to help other people. And lastly, what our young people typically forget, and sometimes we've even forgotten, is that whether the world thinks that we're human or not, we are always human. Whether they treat us as if we're human or not, we are always human. My name is Andre Koen. Thank you so much for your time. Do we have like 2 minutes? Oh, yeah, evaluations. If you want to bring those up, that would be great. I want to say thank you so much for spending all of your time this afternoon with me. I do weddings. I'm a riot at funerals. What's that? Do you want to do student groups? Yeah, I do groups. Yeah. Yeah, I was just joking. I don't do weddings anymore. No, but I do student groups. Yeah, so let me know if there's any way that I can be helpful. I would love to do so. My contact information should be on there somewhere, but you also can find me in the program book. And if you Google my name and nothing comes up, there's something wrong with Google. Thank you. Have a great weekend. This is Thursday. Thursday.